for taking the time to join us here tonight to discuss the Windsor Drive improvements. I'm joined tonight by members of our Public Works and Utilities team, and I'm going to hand it over to Christopher Bolt, our Director of Public Works and Utilities, to take us through the background of the project and introduce us. My name is Jessica. I work with the city on communications. Okay, Christopher.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm Christopher Bolt, Director of Public Works and Utilities, and it's a pleasure to have you all this evening. We're talking about something that we all take very seriously here in our community: safe mobility and community connectivity, also known as safe streets. And we've been in the process of implementing a wide variety of projects throughout the community, and we're even in the process of launching a new program where neighborhoods like yourselves can request improvements to your neighborhoods based on needs. And so the program would evaluate all kinds of criteria. So we're super proud of that, and it's very innovative, and we're excited. So our team's going to roll through some of that this evening, as we also, of course, get zoned in specifically about the intersection in question this evening and all the proposed improvements on Windsor Drive. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Bjorn, for introductions.
Great, thanks, Christopher. And just to introduce myself, my name is Bjorn Griepenberg. I am a project manager with Public Works and Utilities, sort of the active, one of the active transportation specialists that we have on the team. Might as well go ahead and introduce the other city staff on the call. I'll pass it to you, Gina, to say hi, and then and Ken, and then I'll jump into the presentation.
Okay, thanks. I'm Gina Benedetti-Petnick. I'm Assistant Director of Public Works and Utilities. And Ken?
Yep, hello. Ken Eichstead, Senior Traffic Engineer. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks again for taking some time out on your Monday evenings. We have what will hopefully be a pretty quick presentation, and then we'll have an opportunity to get into questions and comments. Here's our very quick overview, just share some background, some of the information about Windsor Drive and some of the data we collected, review the proposed design for the intersection of Edinburgh and Cambridge Lane, which I know you're all excited to see, and then talk about next steps as far as implementation of that project, and then also some exciting prospects for the rest of the corridor, and then open up to questions and comments for everyone in attendance tonight. So as Christopher noted, safe streets are very important to us at the city. They were included in the City Council's top 10 priorities. And obviously they have a lot of priorities to consider. So that really highlights the importance of this. Safe streets are aligned with a lot of our other policies and goals at the city. City Council has set a goal to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030, and obviously creating safe streets is key to achieving that. We've also adopted Vision Zero, which is a goal to eliminate all severe injuries and deaths resulting from traffic collisions, by 2030. We have an adopted complete streets policy, which means whenever we are designing a street, we are considering the needs of all road users. And as Christopher mentioned, we're really excited to be developing a program through which community members can nominate streets for safety or traffic calming improvements. And we would, on an ongoing basis, basically score those projects, those requests using objective scoring criteria, and then implement them in score order as funding permits. And we're hoping to roll that out very shortly within the next couple of months. So now about Windsor Drive. Windsor Drive sees about 1,700 vehicles per day on an average weekday while school is in session. It has a posted speed limit of 30 miles an hour. We've looked at the collision history dating back to 2011, and it does have a relatively low collision rate. Almost all collisions that have happened on Windsor Drive, at least those that have been reported, have been solo crashes involving drivers, running into parked cars or curbs or other roadway features. And as I'm sure you're all aware, especially living out on Windsor Drive or near Windsor Drive, there are no marked crosswalks along the entirety of the corridor, something that we would like to change. And there are also no bike lanes through Victoria. So basically, currently the bike lanes run from D Street to the eastern edge of Victoria and from western to the western edge of Victoria. But as soon as they hit Victoria, the bike lanes abruptly end. And Windsor Drive is proposed for bike lanes in our bicycle and pedestrian master plan, which was adopted in 2008. So what we know, we collected some speed data at this intersection and also traffic volume data. So again, there's a 30-mile-an-hour posted speed limit. Some of the feedback we've heard from the neighborhood that the crossing conditions are challenging here, especially for people on foot. And we've also heard, reports of speeding, which make that crossing condition more difficult and potentially dangerous. We did look early on at whether this location met our requirements or criteria for an all-way stop condition, where Windsor Drive would have stop signs as well as the side streets. Unfortunately, it did not meet the all-way stop criteria, which takes into consideration collisions, speed, and volume. But as we'll share shortly, we've come up with an alternative design to an all-way stop condition that we think will be very effective in addressing these concerns. The average speeds are somewhat close to the posted speed limit. So a little bit slower entering Victoria, coming uphill just below the posted speed limit at about 29 miles per hour. Leaving Victoria, the speeds are higher. So you can see the average speed is over the posted speed limit at 31.5 miles per hour. Notably, many drivers are traveling eastbound, are driving in that 35 to 40 mile an hour range. So over 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, which we consider an enforceable violation. Less so, 13% of vehicles entering Victoria meet that criteria or meet that definition. And then similarly, we see the outlier speeds, 10 miles an hour plus over the speed limit, are higher in the westbound direction leaving Victoria. So the goals of our proposed designs were to slow vehicle speeds, facilitate safe pedestrian crossings, create a more comfortable bicycling experience, convey safe roadway operations to all road users, and importantly, we're going to be using what we call the quick build method, which involves installing signage and roadway markings that can then be adjusted pending feedback we receive and evaluation that we do after implementation to ensure future enhancements. And I should say that all of these goals, they're based on the feedback we received from the neighborhood, our own field observations, the speed data that we collected, and also those overarching city policies and goals related to active transportation that I touched on earlier. So very excited to just kind of walk you through some of the proposed design elements. There are 2 different slides showing the design, so you're not going to see it all captured on one slide. But we'll start with the proposed crosswalk. So we did look at both sides of this intersection, looked carefully at which side we thought could better accommodate a crosswalk. And we ended up on the eastern edge of I'll call it the eastern leg of the intersection, because the curb ramps are lined up much better than on the other side. They're slightly skewed. And you also have a much shorter distance here between the two sides of the street than you do on the other side. You can't see it here, but obviously on the other side, you have that parking bay. So it's a little bit wider and it's kind of at a skewed angle. So this was definitely the better side of the street to install a new crosswalk. We have what I think is probably the best, the next best element that we're including, which is an extension of the concrete median. So what this will do, you have that concrete median that actually ends about 25 feet short of where we would install the crosswalk. So we would stripe that, use paint to basically extend the median out towards the crosswalk, and then even extend a little bit beyond the crosswalk. And then within that striped area, we would include these flexible posts, which are, they have a pretty thick diameter. They look a lot sturdier and more intimidating than your standard plastic post that you see on most city streets. So this will be one of the first projects we're doing in Petaluma. These are called K71 posts. And so we're excited to introduce those here. So what this will do, having this refuge island means that as a pedestrian, you really only need to worry about crossing one direction of traffic at a time, knowing that you have a place to kind of wait and then look again for oncoming traffic. So if you're crossing from the south side to the north side, you know, you look to your left for oncoming traffic, get out to that median, and as you get there, you then can glance to your right and see and just confirm there's no oncoming traffic before you then proceed. So that's an element that we're really excited about. This will also slow down turning movements. So anyone driving down Windsor Drive and then making a left turn, they're now, you know, not going to be able to cut this corner. You're going to have to go out and kind of slowly go around the median. So there's some additional benefit there. You're also seeing just some additional striping at the corners, and the goal with these is just to, again, kind of slow down those turning movements for vehicles entering and exiting the side streets. We've also got some high visibility pedestrian warning signs. These would be double-sided, so you're going to see a sign on both sides of the street in both directions. And I believe that's everything from this slide to capture. Oh, we would also, yeah, no, actually everything else is on the next slide. So what the next slide shows, again, we're doing that same painted median on the western leg of the intersection. So although there is no crosswalk, no marked crosswalk there, legally as a pedestrian, you are entitled to cross the street there at that on that side of the intersection. And you could informally use that as a pedestrian refuge in using that crossing.
Excuse me, Bjorn, could
Yep.
you maybe point out, I'm a little confused where this is exactly?
Sorry, I've been pointing on the wrong screen. Thanks, Jessica.
Oh, that's okay. But also
So,
just like orient me to the neighborhood. Like if I'm
Right,
coming
right,
in
okay.
from Western, where?
Yes. So Western is to the left of your screen. So this is now, again, approaching the Edinburgh-Cambridge intersection here on the top. So I was pointing out the painted median, which we would have on both sides of the intersection. And then again, although this is not, we were not marking this as a crosswalk, legally as a pedestrian, you are allowed to cross here. Same design, same plastic posts included in that median. Let's see what else here. We also have these are called yield teeth. We have these on both sides of the intersection, just showing drivers where they are expected to stop to yield to pedestrians waiting to cross. Provide a little bit of advance warning, as well as signs along with those yield teeth that say yield here to pedestrian on both sides of the intersection. And then we're also adding bike lanes in both directions, extending them past the parking bays. And we're actually taking those bike lanes all the way up to the end of the median, basically at the other intersection with Edinburgh Lane. So what we looked at, this section along the median really isn't wide enough for cars to be parking there safely. And we also, looked pretty carefully at this and it noticed that there aren't any houses that front this stretch of Windsor Drive on either side of the street. You don't have any driveways off of or cul-de-sacs off of Windsor Drive. And again, because this is really not designed for side-by-side parking and vehicle traffic, we felt strongly about formally prohibiting parking along the length of the median. Extending that, the combination of extending that painted median and adding the bike lanes, we're actually going to be narrowing the vehicle lanes down to about 10 feet, which is our best practice for slowing vehicle traffic. Just narrowing the lanes down tends to have a pretty good effect on slowing speed. So not only do we create a more comfortable bicycling experience by adding these bike lanes and slow some of those vehicle turning movements at the intersection by extending the median, but we're just kind of squeezing the lanes down, and generally drivers will go slower under that condition. I'll pause there, Ken, if you want to share anything about your observations or experiences with those 10-foot lanes that we've implemented elsewhere.
Yeah, I'll just say, 10-foot lanes are definite. 10 and 10.5-foot lanes, any of that narrowing just gives, drivers more of a shy distance and tends to slow traffic down. And I've, talked to the city of Santa Rosa, who's done it on similar roads, Yalupa, Hohen, Summerfield, and they've worked. It's a known means to be able to slow traffic. I also wanted to make mention of the curb returns and just trying to give the pedestrian a little bit more, safer access to crossing the road. So you narrow the lanes, they have less distance that they're actually in the travel lane, and it gives them more visibility. And those are something that I think are a real useful tool that have been found to give increased pedestrian safety. So
yeah, thanks, Ken. That's a really good point. Another effect of adding these bike lanes is we are pushing the vehicle traffic closer to the middle of the roadway, which means as a pedestrian crossing the street that you would have a shorter distance in which you'd be basically exposed to, or potentially exposed to, vehicle traffic. So good, yeah, good point, Ken. Thanks. I can't think of anything else to point out on either of these slides, but we can definitely refer back to these in the questions and comments portion. So I'll just move on quickly and about ready to wrap up here. So our plan would be to install these improvements sometime this spring, and then over summer and fall, collect some speed data, hear what you think about the improvements, how they're doing, how they could potentially be adjusted or improved, and then begin design and community engagement for the remainder of Windsor Drive. So we actually just applied for grant funding to install similar improvements throughout the corridor, basically along the length of Victoria. And we expect a decision on that grant funding by July. And so from there, we could start taking a closer look at the rest of the corridor and engage, once again, all of the people who are using Windsor Drive, people who live in Victoria and visit the area. So I think that's everything we have. We've got some instructions here on how to participate. This is a Zoom webinar, so you will have to raise your virtual hand, or if you're on phone, press *9. And then we will just kind of go through, call on you, allow you to unmute yourself. We're not going to have any time limits on these questions and comments. So, but just please, be mindful of our time. Keep things to a reasonable time limit, and please just obviously be respectful. It goes without saying. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And I see we have a few hands already. Jessica, do you want to
Sure.
run the questions and comments?
Yes. That would be great. Okay, so I see Sam Booth first. Sam, I'm going to allow you to talk, and you can go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, thank you. This is Sam's wife, Sarah. We're both listening together. First, I wanted to say thank you to everyone for the work on this and for the community members who spearheaded getting this study done. We live on Edinburgh. We really appreciate that there's a plan in place to make it safer for our kids and for us. I had a couple questions. One is I would be really interested in what the specific requirements are for the four-way stop criteria. And also, is there an option for the crosswalk to have the buttons that have the signs that light up so that when people are crossing, at least they can give drivers a bit more warning? Because like you said, some people are driving fast, and I know sometimes it's a little difficult to see there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Bjorn, do you want to take
Yeah,
that one?
so the stop warrant analysis is, I'll let Ken speak to it, but just sort of introductory is, or the general introduction to the stop warrant analysis is that this is something that is outlined in what's called the manual on uniform traffic control devices. That's basically the guidebook for engineers in making that sets criteria for how to design our streets. And the three primary criteria in the stop warrant analysis are speed, collision history, and traffic volume on both the main approach. So in this case, that'd be Windsor Drive, but also the side approaches, which would be Edinburgh and Cambridge Lane. Ken, do you want to take it over on the warrant analysis?
Yeah, so the warrant analysis is in the MUTCD, the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and that comes to us through the Street and Highway Code for the state of California, and it's the framework that we design, for improvements in the roadway right of way, and it's a very prescribed approach. There's no shortage. You can easily find it, the MUTCD in there, but it's crash analysis, speed, and volume. So the volume is 1,700 vehicles a day. The volume criteria that they have in the warrant analysis is the average hourly volume in 8 hours, and we've got 120 cars in an hour, and the warrant analysis looks for 300 or more. The speed is, if the 85th percentile is 40 miles an hour or higher, and we don't meet that criteria. And then the crash history, we pulled the crash history for a 4-year period, and there were 4 crashes, and it didn't meet the crash history. So I hate to sound so engineering like, frankly, because it's not. I started the slow streets program at the beginning of COVID, and I take this very, I'm very passionate about this, but unfortunately, if Public Works does things that are not in the Street and Highway Code for the state of California, it puts us in a precarious spot. And so, it does not, it unfortunately does not meet the warrant analysis, Sarah. So thank you.
And then the other question was on RFBs, right? Yeah. And so we do not have the push button activated lights, which in engineer speak, those are called rectangular rapid flashing beacons. We call them RFBs. So we do not have that included in this proposed design, but nothing we are doing here would preclude us from making that improvement in the future. Those are pretty costly, and we have a long list of crosswalks in front of this one that would need RFBs based on just higher collision rates, more exposure to vehicle traffic for pedestrians crossing. that would be likely be considered before this one. Just again, given the expense related to
Thanks.
installing those.
Yeah, thank you, Warren. I just want to chime in. One of the other items here with the warrant analysis is it can give a false sense of security for the user out there. We're going to continue to monitor and evaluate this. It's not just an immediate done deal, but currently it doesn't meet it. And there may be other tools that we can look at also on it. So thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. And the next hand we have is Mike Harris. Mike, I'm going to allow you to speak now.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So I have a few questions, and so I'll try not to monopolize time. I think I heard in July you'll hear if you're going to get the response to if the second phase grant was approved. Can you tell me if is that a Safe Streets grant, is a Parks grant, bike access grant, road diet grant? Do we know what type of grant funding or what pot of money it's coming from?
Yeah, so I can answer that. The grant it's the Transportation Fund for Clean Air, which is flows from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District to Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and then they handle the sort of the administration of the grant at the county level. And so that project, we establish eligibility through that. For that grant by proposing to install Class 2 bike lanes on Windsor Drive. But the funding could then go towards sort of the overall improvements that would also benefit, traffic calming and pedestrian enhancements.
Okay, so SCTA. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So thank you for that. And I forgot to say at the beginning, thank you for addressing all this. I live right at the corner of Cambridge and Edinburgh. And I was wondering if you could bring back up one of those slides. It was the second slide where it showed two pictures on top of each other.
Yes.
If possible, please. Thank you.
Was it this one right here? Oops, sorry, I'm not sharing yet. There we go. Is it that one?
Yes, perfect. So so concentrate on the top picture. My house is at the bottom there. See where number 7 is, where there's going to be a sign, I guess a yield sign there. Where is that sign going to be put is my question.
So that would be somewhat basically what we do with these is we identify roughly where it would go, and then it has to be figured out in the field, just kind of figuring out what the best location is, obviously needing to maintain sight lines and also, avoiding any sort of visual obstruction. And then more importantly, not creating any sort of sidewalk accessibility issues. So we would look to install it in a location that would not have any negative effects on, again, sightlines or sidewalk accessibility, but somewhere roughly in that area.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. So thank you. I was just curious if it was on my property or not, if I had to sign a waiver or something, which I'd be all for.
Oh, no, I really don't think this would end up being installed on private property. Try to keep these improvements to public. Yeah, definitely.
So on that concrete median extension there, do you know off the top of your head who maintains that landscape median there by chance? Is that the city or the HOA?
That question has come up. Gina, put you on the spot. I don't know if that was something that did we get to the bottom of that?
Yeah, I believe it's HOA, Mike, and the city has stepped in more than once, but to do some, some sort of urgent care to try and bridge that gap.
I think they
And-
just did it and they did a great job.
Yeah.
So thank you, Gina, because my follow-up with that is when you were talking about line of sight issues, when right now you see the picture you have up there, the bays are empty, but they're almost always completely filled up, which is great because people are going up into the park and exercising. So I fully support that. But when that median strip is overflowing for 4 or 5 months, and this, I guess the HOA isn't maintaining it, plus all the cars that are parking there, there's tremendous line of sight issues that happen through that corridor. So I'm sensing this will help out immensely, slowing down the traffic. But I guess that's an HOA question. I need to ask them to what's their schedule of maintaining that, because now with so much more traffic through there and people parking there now, which is great, there's a bigger issue now.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. We'll definitely keep a close eye on that. And you know, for Victoria residents, if you have that direct line of communication to the HOA to request those median, that the medians do get are maintained more regularly, that always helps. One thing I'm thinking about, if I can just ask you really quickly, if you're seeing in those peak parking conditions, are people parking up closer to this intersection? Because we could also look at, you know, possibly prohibiting parking to ensure that they don't park too close to the intersection, and then that would enable, you know, maintain that sight distance from both of the side streets. Yeah,
they don't really park in that, I guess, where that number 50 is, where their park is, you know, when it starts to, you know, they'll three people will park at the, you know, where they appropriately should, then someone will park in that as it goes up, however you describe that.
Yeah.
So they try to get like a fourth spot out of it.
Okay.
Just to the left a little bit there, they kind of park there. And then what you were mentioning earlier, I think you were saying in phase 2, potentially you might say no parking on on, I guess, as you look at the bottom picture now, approximately, you know, the number 12 is there along there. When that fills up, people have actually started parking there, which I think that you're saying could be not legal on a go forward basis.
Yeah, and we're actually looking at making that change with this project. Okay. So prohibiting parking along the whole length of the concrete median. That really is not a width that is meant to accommodate, again, vehicle traffic and parked cars.
Right. And then my last question, if I may, and does any of this analysis by chance take in the consideration of the recently approved Scott Ranch project, again, which I completely support, and expansion of Helen Putnam Park? That's awesome, but it will have a lot more traffic on there. So if we're forward thinking of what that's going to happen in the coming years, just to brace for it, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think, you know, personally, and Gina, Ken, others, please step in, but I think that'll come more into play as we're looking at the rest of the corridor. But we could certainly, you know, we could all definitely revisit impacts to volume in particular, which there should be some modeling available that maybe looks at the additional projected traffic resulting from that project. I highly doubt it would tip the scales on the stop warrant analysis. Okay. That's a pretty big jump you would need to go from 120 vehicles per hour to 300 vehicles per hour.
Yeah. And we're only adding 29 homes with the David project.
Yeah.
That, and I was thinking not just the homes, and I agree with that, just, you know, that more people coming to Helen Putnam, which is great.
Right.
I see. Right.
I totally support it. I just kind of thinking of the traffic, that's all. And that's all I had. And I again, thank you very much for addressing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. And Bjorn, I wanted to call your attention. I think there's a photo of K71s that might be helpful to share to give people an idea of what we're referring to when we talk about that.
Yes. So these are the K71s, you can see they look quite a bit thicker, and as I said earlier, more intimidating than your standard plastic post that you see on most city streets.
I'll-
Can you jump back to the plan sheet to show where those would be located in the medians, just to emphasize that point. Thank you.
You're testing my screen sharing toggling capabilities here.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
And I'll just mention the K71s, they're kind of like the second generation of, vertical elements, vertical stanchions, and they've got a hinge on them. So they can get pretty beat up and still keep intact. And we don't have to have city maintenance, picking up plastic pieces and maintaining them. They're robust.
Yeah, it'll give us a really good indication too of if we do start seeing that they're getting hit, consideration of adding even more robust elements out there. And that's the beauty of doing these types of quick build projects. So Christopher right now is circling. But yeah, it's these little yellow dots that you're seeing within the painted median. So including 3 out in front of the crosswalk.
Can you show the other side too, Bjorn? The other
Yeah.
median.
Yes.
They have a psychological effect on drivers to crowd what is otherwise a wide open area to show, much like the photo we just explained.
Yeah. So yeah, you're seeing a set. This painted median is 60 feet long. So you're seeing a set of 2 about every 10 feet. And then the 3 out at the front, sort of marking the edge of the median.
So between having those and the bike lanes, you are suddenly what we call the runway effect, the wide open, where a driver feels safe to just speed through. This is a crowding effect, which psychologically should and often does, studies show, causes drivers to be more cautious and slow. I just want to emphasize one point before we go to the next question, and that is that we do plan to, we have in the budget that's proposed for our council the purchase of some special software and camera systems that will do traffic counts of pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles over an extended period of time using intermittent photos motion detectors, so that it's much different than having folks out there with clipboards counting. We can actually over a week or 2 at various times of year get pretty high resolution traffic data to help improve safety. So our hope is, after we get these installations finished, is to take a traffic count again and compare it with our results that we already have using this new technology.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Christopher. And thank you, Mike. Next up, we have Patty Liu. Patty, I'm going to allow you to talk. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hold on one second. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry about that.
No.
So thank you so much. First, I really appreciate you listening to this community and spending the time and thoughtfulness to pull together this plan and bring it to us. It seems really thorough. I think I didn't realize my hand was still up. Most of my questions were answered. Seeing the picture of those yellow markers was really helpful. And so around the yellow markers is actually also going to be yellow paint. Is that right? What you shared there? Okay, great. And I don't think I have any other questions at all. So once again, thank you. Really appreciate the time that you did and to listen to this neighborhood where we get lots of people whizzing by all the time, but I'm sure this is going to help.
All right, thank you, Patty. And then next we have Amadeo. Amadeo, I'm going to allow you to talk. Okay.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey guys, I wanted to say a huge shout out and thank you to the department for putting together this proposal. I think it looks really good. And I know that our neighborhood group has worked with you guys for a long time now to get to this point. I just want to say thanks again for sticking with us and for you know, taking it seriously and putting forth an alternative, which I think is actually very, very good. And I'm hopefully the rest of the community on the call will agree that it's going to do only good things to improve the safety in our community. So secondly, shout outs to all of my Windsor neighbors for safety on the call, and all my neighbors. Good to see you guys being engaged and making your voice heard in the community. Thank you for all of your participation. And on that, really quick, a couple questions. My first question is, due to the permissions of the Zoom, I'm unable to see how many people are on this call. Is someone able to just sort of tell us right now how many community
Right
members
now
are on this call?
we have 5 panelists and 11 attendees, and the height of the attendee list was 13.
Cool, that's great. I'm glad you guys could make it. Sorry that the guys who had to bounce out must have gotten bored, or they got the information they needed already and split, which is also probably good. So I had 2 specific questions though related to the project. One is timeline. Can you guys sort of share and set expectations to this neighborhood as to when we can expect these improvements to be implemented in full? And then secondly, Bjorn, could you just maybe take a quick second to also talk a little bit about the signage change relating to the slow children sign? It's going to be moved. We're going to replace it. We're going to upgrade it. I think that's one thing to me, being a parent of you know, children, I would love to just make sure that gets highlighted for the rest of the group.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Amadeo, and thank you so much for all of your patience and also your persistence in championing these improvements on behalf of your neighborhood. Ken, I'll look to you maybe for a rough timeline based on what we've seen on other similar projects recently. Of course, recent months have been much more bogged down by weather-related delays, and we're probably not going to have those delays over the next couple of months, but what can we generally expect with a project like this?
Yeah, and I was just thinking about it because I had another project where the K71s were 2 months out. So I'm hoping I bump up on that sort of supply chain issue. I'm hoping that that's not the case anymore. But I would need to check on that because that delayed implementation where we're putting them in on the east side. But if we go out to bid on it, we need to advertise it. And I think this type of contract is probably something that I would expect by the middle end of summer probably. I wish I could be a little bit more definitive, but there's a sequential process to put a project out to bid, and there's variability into it, but I would think late summer would be a reasonable approach. So
Awesome, that sounds great. And just follow up to that, what kind of communication methods should this community expect moving forward for updates on that? If for perhaps it gets delayed longer, like how can we we don't want to necessarily be emailing you guys every time saying, hey, we don't see any work out here, what's going on? What's the cadence of communication coming back to the community that we can expect for something like this?
I'll give that a stab. We would ask for a certain amount of active participation from any community member who's interested in the project by going to our website and looking there first. Often we'll put updates on the website. We also do outreach the entire, and that's community wide, of course. We also do outreach to the broad community through our biweekly email updates, the community newsletter. And then for another broader community update, usually after a project is installed, we'll come back and we'll do either an email or an online survey to get feedback through users' experiences. So once that quick build is in, we really value that time to start getting feedback from folks that are actually using it as design and saying, whoa, this is awesome, or this part was great and this part not so much. Would you consider this, or did you think about that, or I had a problem with this? And so we take that feedback in, and that's done either through the website. Usually there will be an opportunity on the webpage to post those sorts of comments and provide that feedback. And then of course our project management team will also be available. The project manager will be designated and they'll be listed on the project page with their contact information. Mm-hmm. In terms of, if we have a 1 or 2 month delay on materials, we don't generally, reach out to the neighborhood to say, hey, we're running a month late, or we're running a couple months late. Because if we did that for all the 90 projects that we are juggling right now, we'd need another 2 Jessicas to help us with that communications. So we tend to use our more broad-based outreach platforms and on email, social media, and the website for that. Mm-hmm. And Amadeo, we know that you know how to reach us, so there's not an issue there either. And Jessica, anything I'm missing on the communications that you want to backfill?
Yeah, thank you for jumping in with that, Gina. Definitely the webpage, and if you all received a postcard in the mail, the address is on there, but it's cityofpetaluma.org/Windsor Drive. And on the webpage, you can sign up to receive updates. So if you sign up, your name will be added to our email list, and then we'll potentially send out dedicated emails with project updates. So that is a really good place to get started. And then also for many of our projects, and I believe we do the same for this one, a couple weeks in advance, we'll send a postcard to the neighborhood just to say, hey, by the way, this is going to be being installed. Any anticipated traffic impacts or things like that, just to give a heads up. And I don't think this would be significant. Bjorn or Gina or somebody else could speak to that, but yeah. And as Gina said, the project manager information is listed on the webpage also, so feel free to reach out to us. And community update, social media channels, those are all good options as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are updating them regularly, that'd be really useful.
Updating the webpage?
Yeah.
Yep.
I see Christopher has his hand up. The only thing I'll just quickly add about postcards, the caveat there is that a lot of times when we're doing these smaller traffic related projects with a contractor, they'll literally tell us, like, sometimes the day of or a couple days prior to, they find a gap in their schedule and they line it up with weather, and then they're out there doing it. So not always feasible for us to send a postcard out with estimated construction on these types of projects. But if we happen to get advance notice, we'll do what we can to get the word out.
Cool. And FYI, I didn't get a postcard, and I know some people on this call also didn't get postcards. So might be something to look at on the department side. But anyway.
Wow.
Okay, thanks for that feedback.
Team, I just wanted to add something if I could. This is innovative, what we're doing, and being a new program, not only is there a shortage of some of the materials, unfortunately, but we want to make it a high quality installation. So one of the things we're doing, instead of just paint, which we could do more quickly anyway, is thermoplastic, a high reflectivity material that's much more durable. in this application, because safety is paramount. We want to make sure we put it in the right way. So that's one reason we're having to go to contractors rather than having our crews do it. However, in parallel with that, I am asking our team to, get our crews, our own public works crews, more integrated to observe and learn and possibly go to training as to should we invest in our own thermoplastic equipment so that we can do these in much more expeditious fashion in the future. So we're learning as we go. Thank you for your patience as we basically turn over a new leaf in your public works department. Everyone on this call is new within the last 3 years-ish. And I've only been director, for example, for a little over a year and a half, I think now. So there's a lot of change happening in the community and a lot of leadership turnover. So we're doing our best to be responsive and to address concerns like this. So just want to say thank you and to explain a little bit more about why there's a little bit of time needed to get the installation completed. Thank you.
And I don't want to, thanks, Christopher. There was one more question there from Amadeo regarding signage. So I'll once again share my screen here. So as we were looking at the signage for this, again, we're really excited. The double-sided pedestrian warning signs are going to be extremely visible. And again, you're going to see those on both sides of the street when you're traveling in both directions. Because of the prominence of that sign and also the addition of the bike lane and parking prohibition, we do need to add some signs to this existing light post, which is just past that corner. Currently, it has a slow children at play sign on it. We recognized, that the optics with removing that sign wouldn't be great. So we ended up finding a different location to post that out. And basically there's a sign in the middle of the median, or at the very tip of the concrete median, that facing westbound drivers says keep right. It's basically warning them of the median being there. So we're looking at actually moving that slow children sign to the back of that sign in the median, so it'll be much more visible to drivers as they're entering Victoria. And then in the other direction, we do have one on there's another one somewhere else on the corridor, and we could also look at doing the same on this side, although there is a lot of signage at this intersection, and it's there's always a balancing act to play with installing signage that is going to get noticed by drivers and really fulfill its intended purpose.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bjorn. And the last hand we have up is David Tuttle. David, I'm going to allow you to talk now.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. So thank you all. And Bjorn, we're going to test your screen sharing skills once again. If you can bring up the first page of the diagram, those changes. So I might have missed this, and I apologize to folks on the call, but you'll notice in this diagram right here, the crosswalk painted in, I assume, white cuts through the yellow median. This doesn't appear on the second diagram on page 1. Is the proposed design to include this thatched crosswalk or to not include that?
Yeah, the crosswalk is included. So it was left off of the other page just for, I actually don't know why it was left off this page, but this will be the page that informs the crosswalk installation.
Okay, perfect.
Just to zoom in, since it's a more detailed design. Yeah.
Bjorn, I think the other page was meant to emphasize signage, and this is a zoomed in of some of the markings there. If you flip.
Yeah. No worries. I just wanted to understand if that crosswalk was going to be part of the design. So that answers
Yeah.
the question. Second is, and I understand that speed and cost are factors in moving forward with the extension of this median. But was there any analysis done to determine if just extending the cement median as was currently designed would have been either more cost effective or more effective in general? And I say that in part because the K71s to me look a little bit like I'm driving through a construction zone, and aesthetically to me less pleasing than if it was just an extension of the median.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with these, again, I call this a quick build projects. Those are projects that entail signage and roadway markings and these surface mounted elements like those plastic delineators. The goal with those quick build projects is that they are they're more cost effective. They require a lot less engineering and design, and they can be implemented and adjusted in a relatively short time frame. With concrete work, that definitely brings the cost up quite a bit. Adds, there's definitely more civil engineering required, our approach as a city is generally to try to incorporate, make these quick build improvements, and then potentially in the future come back and start filling in some of the painted spaces with concrete work. But of course that all requires careful consideration of funding availability and other priorities. Anyone else on the team want to touch on sort of the quick build to concrete
Yeah, I'll just that these K71 pylons are really a new wave form of signage and indications for drivers, along with a variety of other tools and techniques, speed bumps, speed humps, all kinds of things to actually create that crowding effect, that psychological noise. I guess noise could be one term, but we see them in San Francisco, we see them in Sacramento and many other communities, even smaller than Petaluma, as communities are starting to deploy these kinds of tools. So we want to get out there and try them, see how they work, and you'll be seeing them all over Petaluma soon enough here with some other projects as well. But it's called hardening, when you take a quick build and you do the concrete work and you make it permanent. So that is something in the future potentially.
Great. Thank you, Christopher. And can I suggest, or put at least a suggestion out there, that on the other end of that median, the cement median, where there is one very simple sign indicating that there's a median, the visibility of that median is bad, especially in adverse weather conditions. We've literally seen people drive over the median, not being able to see it in bad weather. So whether you can incorporate your thermoplastic paint and or some other potential paint to I would say make the area safer in general. And it's not that people were speeding, it's just a pure visibility situation. I would encourage that. I don't think it would take much to make that little end of it seem more visible to people driving through. I would also second the initial comment about lighted signs, and whether they're simply just the lighted crosswalk signs that use solar power, or the signs that actually go more specifically across the intersection as lit markers. Any of those I think would actually be extremely valuable if it were not too difficult to incorporate those. And I guess I would finally end with, I appreciate that you guys are aligned with the Street and Highway Safety Code for California. I don't think that generally the public and the populace of our country understand that stopping at a stop sign creates pollution, fairly significant pollution. So the fact that somebody's thought of that and put some guidelines around it make a lot of sense. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. And that was the last raised hand. Would anybody else like to comment or have a question?
I just wanted to, so this is Ken, to David's point there, we could look at some different colored K71s. The yellow is kind of what you want in the median. So I can't, I get it. It sort of looks like a construction zone, but I'm not sure there's a whole lot else when we're trying to deal with safety. You kind of need something very visible. And I hear you on the median visibility. So we can, get the city crews out there or put it in part of this project to make sure that median is visible on foggy and inclement weather conditions. And then, the RRFBs, the rapid rectangular flashing beacons, we can get those in solar. And, we've got them on Washington. The city got a grant through Caltrans on that and implemented the safer crossing conditions on East Washington. So that's something that we could look at. So, and thanks for recognizing greenhouse gas emissions, because an always stop is not, the city, we've got a lot of competing challenges, and being carbon neutral by 2030 is something that we need to keep very much in the front of our minds on all these projects. And so putting in a bunch of concrete may not necessarily be the best thing, because of greenhouse gas emissions, is something that the city staff definitely takes into consideration when we look at our projects. So thank you for being aware of that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ken. Okay, team, Bjorn, Christopher, Gina, any closing remarks?
I'd just like to thank Amadeo and the Neighborhood Association and all of you who've attended this evening to learn more about the project. It's been a process. Again, we've been through some transition, and we strive to find creative and innovative solutions that really do things right and do them well. So we thank you for your patience, and really appreciate all the comments and feedback tonight. We will definitely take that in as we make a successful project here. Anything from the rest of your team?
No, I just echo that. Thank you so much. Again, Amadeo, Patty, and the rest of your neighborhood group. Thanks for everyone joining tonight and asking great questions and providing feedback. And we're looking forward to getting this out there, making these improvements. And then as Jessica said, and Gina, keep in touch. Let us know what you think about it once it's in place. And we can always come back, make adjustments, and we can, more importantly, we'll apply lessons learned here to these projects citywide as we continue to roll these out all across the city. So thank you all for feedback you've given to date and feedback you'll give in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. I think that's it. So please visit the webpage cityofpetaluma.org/Windsor Drive, and be sure to sign up to receive project updates. Feel free to reach out to us directly, and we look forward to working with you to make the street safer.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Bye, thanks.